No! Hey everybody, welcome to Buratech. We're going to be talking about the battle between Apple and Epic Games. Alright, welcome back. Before we start this video, I want to make sure that you like and subscribe. The more likes and subscribers we get, the more content we can make. So, the gloves are off and the battle between Epic Games and Apple is officially on. Now, of course, you've probably seen all the news articles as this video is maybe a little bit late, but I'm here to talk about the implications for both Apple, indie developers, and Epic Games, and how this is going to affect you and your coding career. So if you don't already know, Epic Games tried to bypass the App Store's 30% commission by adding in a payment processor to its Fortnite game. Now this is huge because Apple is very clear on its rules. You have to go through the App Store. Apple is very controlling of its platform and it makes every developer go through its App Store. Now there's a lot of pros and cons with this, and the one thing that Fortnite did and Epic Games, they basically said, we don't want to do that. 30% is too much. And one can argue maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but we're going to be talking about that in this video. Now the other thing I should also mention is that Epic is in the exact same situation with Google and their Play Store. They tried to bypass the system there, and they're pretty much getting the same response. However, Apple is the key part of this story because this isn't the first time someone has raised this issue. Now, a few weeks ago, there was a hearing where members of Congress decided to grill the top tech CEOs. And this is really important because the major question today is, are these companies monopolistic, and is that good or bad? Well, spoiler alert, monopolies are not good. And the one person you should follow in this is Scott Galloway, because Scott has a lot of very well thought out arguments, and basically if I were to talk about that, I'd basically be paraphrasing him. But what he really talks about is that these tech companies are very monopolistic, and that really hurts not only innovations but consumers. And in this case, Apple is being a bit monopolistic with its App Store. I cannot go and create my own marketplace on Apple's system, and because of that, that is seen as monopoly. Now what Epic Games did is they tried to bypass Apple's App Store, and instead of charging the consumer an extra 30%, they passed everything on right to the consumer. So Epic Games made the same amount of money, but the consumer got to buy less. Now I think this is really interesting because Epic is not really profiting because of this, but what happened next is absolutely unbelievable. And I think it was probably not the right move for Apple. What Apple did was threaten to revoke the certificates for the Unreal Engine, meaning that any game developer that uses the Unreal Engine might not be able to publish to iOS. Now that was a huge move, and I don't think it was the right move, which I'll be talking about shortly. Now a lot of gamers are on the side of course, Epic, and a lot of gamers don't like Apple, so naturally if you're into gaming, you'll see a lot of news articles that are more likely to side with Epic than Apple. But Apple really does have a point here. So obviously Apple created the platform and they maintain it, and believe it or not, having that one system of having everything go through the App Store is very secure, because when you submit an app to the App Store, some person reviews it or a team of people review it, and that means that there is no kind of chicanery with any kind of data privacy or any kind of thing that would affect consumers. If, for example, this was a regular computer, I can get people to download a bunch of malware and I can siphon off data. But phones are not like that. So believe it or not, having everything go through the App Store is an actually good idea. But the thing is that the App Store is quite a different place from 2008 to today. Now, if you don't remember 2008, a lot of people basically either downloaded an app for free or they had a very hard time paying $1. In fact, I remember this Oatmeal comic here that mentioned that you could buy a $5 latte, but you're really upset about paying $1 for an app. Now, obviously that's changed. And when I was an app developer in the early 2010s, I had this problem too. People would just not pay for games. And that's not the case today. A lot of people pay games. And believe it or not, I think that the ecosystem is a lot better for independent developers. So I really do agree with Apple when they say that they want to control everything. However, even I've had this problem too. Obviously not in the scale that it's happened to Epic, but For the most part, when I go to upload an app to the App Store, I want to be able to make a game as quickly as possible. And one of the things Apple has done over the years is not support HTML5. And HTML5 was really awesome 10 years ago, and I think that it could have been really good. But again, if Apple doesn't support it, you're really screwed. So if perhaps there was another HTML5 App Store on the iPhone, then perhaps a lot of people might just flock to that. But web technologies are inherently less secure than Apple's ecosystem, so there's the problem, and that's why Apple doesn't really allow it. In fact, a lot of web technologies are very insecure, and Apple doesn't allow certain APIs on their platform because there is the potential to harm consumers. So Apple is really trying to protect its consumers, and Apple is really trying to brand itself as a privacy-first and consumer-friendly device. So if you buy an Apple product, your privacy and your data is going to be secure with them, and you just get to use the Apple products in a way that is just for you, and Apple is not benefiting from your data or your information. Now, I think that Apple banning the Unreal Engine and its developers from using the Unreal Engine, or at least threatening to, was the wrong move. Because if Epic can prove that this is monopolistic behavior and it's gonna completely crush their business, that is not good for Apple. Now, if you're just following this story here, this story with Apple has been going on for a few years, specifically with Spotify. Now, Spotify has to pay Apple 30%, whereas Apple Music, which is literally a Spotify clone, does not have to pay that. Hence, what Apple is doing, and I'm gonna quote Scott Galloway here, is that it has its Death Star laser focused on Spotify, on killing Spotify, and that is the toxic, monopolistic behavior that I don't think is really good, not only for society, for businesses, or even developers and individuals. Because without competition in the free market, you will not be able to have progress. And again, I really just urge you to follow Scott Galloway. He really has a lot of good information on this, and I highly recommend that you follow him on Twitter and watch his content. So if Epic can prove that Apple is being a toxic monopoly, I think that's not really good for Apple. And this has huge implications over the App Store. Because if Epic wins, then other developers might have a different cut. And here's what I think is going to happen. I think Apple is going to reassess its App Store percentage, and it's going to make something that is a little bit more fair. Now, personally, as an indie developer, if I upload something to Apple and they market the crap out of my game, then I don't really care if they take 30%. Now, obviously, Epic and Fortnite, that's 30% is a lot of money. Now, what Apple needs to prove is how much work did they do for that 30%. Now, arguably, it's quite a lot by creating the entire platform, but at the same time, though, it might not be as much worth as the 30%. So I think a really good compromise on this, and of course Apple doesn't have to compromise because it's one of the most, if not the most valuable company on the planet. But if there is a compromise that is court driven, perhaps there's a sliding scale of percentages. 30% on the first million, 25% on the first 10, 20% on the first 20, and so on and so forth. So that way, developers won't be getting screwed the more success they have. Now, the other thing that Apple can do is possibly charge more of a subscription for the amount of downloads. So if you get 5 million downloads, it's gonna cost more. But then again, indie developers, if you have a success, you might not be able to pay that amount. So I think the sliding scale is probably the compromise that Apple and developers should probably have. Now, of course, Apple is not going to do this unless they are court ordered to do that. And frankly, they don't really need. Now, another issue that's on top of this is that I can go onto my computer and install any software from any developer. Now, of course, that comes with risk, and I only install software from trusted developers. Now, your phone, especially your iPhone, is not like that. On Android, you can actually sideload applications, but on Apple, you can't. Now, this really begs the question, do you own your iPhone or not? And if you've been following this, which I have, there is a big right to repair movement. Now, Apple has recently announced that they're going to let some independent shops have parts and give them training, etc. So that's definitely a step in the right direction. And right to repair is a big issue, not only for phones, but it's a bigger issue for farm equipment. You would be surprised on how much digital rights management is used in farm equipment. to the point where some farm equipment is completely inoperable unless you go through the proper channels to make it work. And this is absolutely crazy. Imagine if you didn't pay your subscription service and your car just stopped working. You need that car to get to work. And this is what farmers have to do every day. Their tractor will not work unless things happen. And some of the software is quite buggy. So what a lot of farmers do is they actually jailbreak their tractors, which is a really weird sentence to say. But they jailbreak their tractors with some Ukrainian software, and that way they can get past the DRM. So the right to repair movement is a big deal. And if some of that right to repair movements for farmers, which I think is quite unfair to farmers, ends up being transferred over to phones, then your iPhone will be more like your computer than it is like the current state. And Apple of course, does not want that to happen. They need to have control. And again, their argument isn't technically bad. I'm not disagreeing with it at all. Everything going through the App Store is great. But the big problem is that they're acting like a monopoly, and a toxic monopoly in specific cases, and that needs to be stopped. So this is going to be a really big issue, and I really do think that the sliding scale is the best compromise. Now, if Apple does win this court case, then that is absolutely not going to happen. And that's going to have very profound effects, not only for the Unreal Engine, but developers. I love the Unreal Engine. I think it's one of the best engines ever created. And what that means is that I might not even upload my game to the App Store anymore. I just want to go to Steam because, well, frankly, I don't want to get involved in this. So who's really at fault here? Is it Epic for calling out Apple's monopoly? Or is it Apple saying that some applications do not meet their standards and frankly harm consumers? It's very tricky. And frankly, it's gonna be up to the courts, and there's gonna be a lot of legal jargon in here that is going to be very hard to understand. So everyone knows this famous commercial from Apple. Now, Fortnite made a parody of this, and that parody is quite apt because Apple used to be the outsider. It used to be the underdog. Now it's one of the most, if not the most valuable companies on the planet. And it's definitely throwing its muscle in a way that they're saying that they need to be on top. Now, of course, if you're the most valuable company in the world, you obviously have some leverage here. But this is one thing that can happen to you or your company. What you did at the start might not be where your company is today. You might have had values in one day, and those values change. And this can happen not only to companies, but you personally. You might be really productive in your early 20s, but when you get to 40, you're not a productive person anymore. Remember that time changes a lot of things, and some of those things might be good or bad. And in this case, Apple has become the thing that it used to rally against. So let me know your thoughts below. This is an incredibly complex debate, and I want to have a discussion. So please post your comments and share this video as much as you can. Please share it on Reddit. Also, please be sure to like and subscribe. We are so close to being monetized, and we're so close to having 1,000 likes and 1,000 subscribers. So please, it really would make my day is if we got monetized because of this video. And if you really like this channel, you can buy our products down below. This channel doesn't do a Patreon, instead we sell our digital products down below. And the more money we get, the more content like this that we can make. It not only helps out this channel, it helps out my e-learning company, Mammoth Interactive. And our goal on Mammoth Interactive is to get to 10,000 monthly subscribers. We release 20 to 60 hours of fresh new content every month. So we release everything from web development tutorials to machine learning tutorials to game development tutorials and more. Again, we have a monthly and yearly options. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in another video.